welcome to this special episode of the Game Live London podcast. My name is Stuart de Ville and we are here at the Samsung KX venue, the hub of innovation. Today my special guest is Shin of Arrogant Pixel, and I will now pass over to her to introduce herself.
Hi, my name's Jay. I'm a co-founder of an indie studio called Arrogant Pixel. So we make video games, but I also am a lecturer at a few universities and colleges, and I'm also doing a PhD at Birkbeck, University of London, and it's so lovely to be here in this amazing venue, so thank you so much for inviting me.
So the topic that we want to start with today is employment versus self-employment. Mm-hmm. I know that both of us are self-employed, so we will try to be even and not biased.
Well, actually, as of late, I have actually become employed, so maybe I could give you like a little bit on the other side, but I'm not the greatest employee, like I say, so maybe we'll go into that a little bit anyway. But what we wanted to talk about in general was that it's kind of like a lifestyle choice, I guess. Yeah. And it is a choice as to whether you want to become self-employed or not. I don't think that many people find themselves falling into it.
No, it's
really.
Definitely a conscious decision. Like, I want to be in control of everything and I think that's where it comes from, isn't it? Like, it's a control thing. I want to do what I want to do, and I don't want other people telling me what I can do.
I think with different personality types as well, it really can differ. So what I teach, my background anyway, the lecturing stuff was that I came from a music background, but at university I did music management. So it wasn't like the performance side of things. I went down the more artist development and sort of industry side. So we got a lot of law modules, had a lot of psychology modules, like organizational psychology and things like that. And what I learned from that course, I've been kind of putting into my own sort of learning materials for my students. Yeah. So a lot of that has got to do with like reflection, I think. Not a lot of people spend enough time reflecting on stuff, on anything. It's just like, how did my day go today? Yeah. You know, am I happy with how it went? Did I have any interactions that maybe if I were to go back I would do over? That sort of thing. Maybe people do think about
I think some people have that, like, going over conversations, but I think it's rare that it's a good thing that they're doing it. Normally it's ruminating over, oh, I shouldn't have said that, was such a stupid thing to say.
Rarely is it constructive. Yeah. That's what I mean. Like, I'm sure people think about things, like an embarrassing thing that happened years ago, and it suddenly comes up as you're trying to sleep, and that sort of thing. Yeah. But in terms of actually like reflecting and then doing something positive about it, or actually actioning some change of behavior out of it, not too many people tend to do that.
Yeah,
really.
Especially not when it comes to careers, I don't think. Like, it's very easy to get stuck in that drudgery of going to work, doing the work, coming home, sitting on the sofa, vegging out and being like, oh, today was horrible. And that's as far as you get. Whereas what you ideally would do is get home and be like, what did I do today? Am I happy doing this, like, long term? Do I want to do this day in, day out? As we've said before, like, what am I going to be doing when I'm 40? What am I going to be doing when I'm 70? Like, all of these things are not, it's not like normal to kind of just think about, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, for you, like, how did you get into game development, for example?
The long way around?
Yeah, sure. I mean, or you can do it short.
Yeah, well, the short version is that I thought I wanted to be a character artist. I was gearing myself up, teaching myself everything that I needed to know to be a character artist. Started to try and get into AAA studios, realised that it's hard enough when you have studied to get in, let alone whether you're self-taught or not. There's a lot of people in AAA who get laid off, and so AAA just reconsumes them. So the barrier for entry there was like insane, and I was like, but I still want to do it. So I started by making a game with a friend of mine, and from there the ideas came, and I was like, okay, I just need to do this bigger and better. And then I was like, I need my own studio. So that's kind of the long and short of it. Yeah,
no, that's so cool though. I think it's a similar story, like, I mean, not similar in that I wanted to be a character artist or I wanted to be in games per se, but I remember like watching Lord of the Rings, and it came out at a time where I was just like really into it. And the thing, it wasn't the movie exactly, it was, I got the deluxe edition of Lord of the Rings, and they had like 12 hours of behind the scenes.
Right.
And I had that on repeat. I'm telling you, like on repeat, like throughout college, university, and just be like, I just want to be part of the production of something, of anything. It could be music, it could be film, it could be games. I wasn't bothered. I just want to have a hand in like creating something, and I want it to be my thing. That was more where I was coming from. So obviously my career in music didn't pan out, guys, so you don't, you know, just so you know. And I found myself, you know, with my partner at the time, thinking, what could we do? We've been in and out bands together, that sort of thing. And he was like, I want to learn how to program. And I'm like, that's cool. For what? And he was like, oh, we're really into games. Like, let's try and make something. And we booted up like Wintermute engine, like back in the day. It was 2012, I think, probably when we first opened any kind of program. I mean, I'd done like RPG Maker stuff in the past, and he'd done a lot of like animations, and he was involved in a lot of the modding community and things like that. So he had a little bit of a background in it, but it was just out of wanting to create something. I think our bands had like kind of failed, and like our projects had kind of failed, and we were thinking, okay, we want to do something that is going to make us money at the end of the day. But we didn't want to just go and get like a normal job. And we just always, like, me and him are kind of similar in that we're like really stubborn and have to like kind of do things our way. And that's just sort of how all of this sort of came about. But then again, I'm talking about this like that was because my personality type was of that sort of type, I guess, to want to like reach out and do things on my own. And not everybody has that, and that's okay. Because I think people look at like Elon Musk and these entrepreneurs, they're seen as like rock stars, you know, people to aspire to be. And absolutely, they're like inspiring people. But again, not everybody really understands what comes with that. There's a lot of sacrifice and a lot of like, I can't hang out with you because I'm working on my business that isn't making money at the moment. Do you know what I mean? And a lot of people don't quite get what you're about.
I think people also don't look into like where Elon Musk started. A lot of people just go, oh, he's a massive success, it's because he's a genius. Like, no, he had like a fair few failures before he got to the thing that made him enough money to do the bigger thing, Like, and a lot of that, like you say, came from him deciding at some point, this is what I want to do, and the way that I'm going to do that is, that's my pure focus.
I mean, in terms of people finding their pure focus though, in like what advice would you give people like that were thinking, like ruminating over this question, sort of self-employment versus employment?
I think you're right in terms of you kind of need to ask yourself what kind of personality you have. Like, do you care if you're if you want to be in game development, do you care whether or not it's your game you're making, or are you just like, oh, I just want to be part of it, I just want to, like, maybe you love the camaraderie of working with other people, in which case you probably do want to be part of the machine. Or if you're like, actually, I've got this idea is what I want to make, and then you need to figure out how you're going to do that and who you need to do that with. Yeah,
I mean, that's the problem, isn't it? It's just like with, I guess, being a musician, you can do it all yourself. You know, like, I'm going to be the singer-songwriter. I'm going to make everything. I'm going to do everything, film the video, whatever. With games, it's slightly harder because I guess the departments in like AAA studios are quite siloed. So, as a result, undergraduate degrees and colleges like kind of churn out, you know, people with skills that they think that the industry needs, but actually what they need is like just a body in a chair, you know, doing the thing, and it's not everything that you've learned at university. So, and we've got to remember here that the games industry is like really young. It's only been around for 50 years, so there's no established way of doing things. Like when I first entered the games industry, I assumed it was going to be like the music industry and that I'd be able to find loads of information online about like the industry. But I tried to type in like typical production deal, you know, publishing deal, and you can't find any. No. Whereas in the music industry, there's a website called Rock Paper Shotgun, and there's all of these like examples of, you know, riders and contracts and things like that that, you know, famous artists have signed. So there's an idea of like what the higher end looks like, whereas in games, like
nothing.
Well, I mean, I guess it's just not been around as long. And
I think there's definitely information out there, but it's not all in one place. I found that a lot of the information that I pulled together was from going to physical meetups and networking with people.
Right, yeah, it's talking to other people. It's actual information from people that have been there, like from the horse's mouth. There's rarely someone out there like giving this information away freely, really.
I think the other problem is though that like when you listen to or watch someone's devlog, or when someone like does a post-mortem of their game and their release, every single one that I watch is completely different. They did it a completely different way, and even those that are successful still kind of didn't have the same formula, because when you make a game, obviously the success is dependent on whether or not the market wants it, and to a large degree you don't really know, like unless you've got money to put into like mining that data, like it's so I think it's hard to even have that for the game industry.
Yeah, because it's just like no one can predict the future. Like, you know, as much as you know, there's economists and people that try, but there's been plenty of times where they've been wrong. And these are experts, right? So it's just like, how are you going to know that in 3 years' time that your game's going to be relevant? You know, and that's the madness of it, because game development normally at like a certain level takes so long that like a console generation might have passed, you know, over the dev cycle, and then you suddenly have to go, oh my God, I have to make a PS5 version of this because otherwise it's not going to be relevant. That's a massive headache.
Or there was no Switch before.
Sure, yeah, just things like that. It's just things will happen which you just need to just adapt, or you don't survive, kind of thing. It's like the basics of sort of game theory, I guess, in business when we're talking about that. It's like having a dominant strategy, but there's no way to have a dominant strategy if you're not aware of the environment in which you're operating in. And games, as you know, is like every new game that you make, it's a project because it's not a process, right? A process, you would think, in project management, we would call it something that is replicable. Yeah. So if you've done it before, then it's a process. If you haven't done it before, you do it so rarely that you have to like work things out again. It's a project, like a wedding is a project, for example. That's got a budget, that's got a time frame, that's got all of these people and different things to organise. And if you get married again, it will be another project because it's not the same as the previous.
Not the same wedding, not the same taste.
Precisely. So we have to think of game development in general as like a whole project management problem, because we're dealing with very complicated projects, probably multiple of them once you get to a certain level, and then managing them at different phases of development. It just blows your mind, like what you kind of need to do.
What would you say would be a good way to figure out whether or not your personality is the kind of personality that can manage that beast? Like I didn't know beforehand that I was going to be able to manage it the way that I have. I'm sure you were saying, like, there's no way you could have known where you would be when you get there. No,
I mean, I guess some people just know, but I would say that the best way to sort of understand what kind of person that you are is just to get a job. You know, if you don't have a job, just get one, see how it feels. Like, are you dreading going into work every day? Then it's probably something that doesn't, whether it's the job or whether it's like the physical act of just like being somewhere at the same time. Like, you have to kind of work that out and really ask yourself those questions, because I found myself, you know, working full time, performing and doing all of that stuff, and dreading going out for drinks later. Right. And most people would like really like be looking forward to that. But I would be like, oh God, I'm gonna have to put on my showbiz face and talk to all these people that I don't know, and be in a really loud environment and in a really dimly lit environment. Just something about that, like I didn't have a problem with performing. it was the after parties that I had an issue with, I think, and the travelling and the touring and everything else apart from that. But in general, there was just something about my job that just wasn't right, that wasn't sitting right, which meant, and there was nothing that I could do about it because that was the nature of the industry. It's not like I could go in and change that.
Yeah, change
so
the entire music
I had
industry, sure.
to either like it or lump it, basically. I decided to lump it. Not really, but in terms of, I've always been like very independent, and I knew that whenever I got a job, I'd rise very quickly. Like you said, like I've got a similar experience. Like when you get hired, like people are like, oh yeah, that person sort of knows what they're doing. Like, we'll promote you to manager. But then I'd hit the ceiling like really quickly of like wherever I was, because it's not like I could become CEO or anything, even though I probably do a good job. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? But like.
Yeah, in I guess you call it mainstream jobs, like there is the ladder. And the ladder is, you're at the bottom, you're in the middle, you're at the top. And then to go above and beyond that, you need to start your own.
Yeah. So. I mean, I guess when you're a successful employee, you kind of like get absorbed into the wolf pack anyway, into like management. So you start to like get involved in like some of those decisions, or like at least like be in that environment where those like higher level decisions are being made. Yeah. And then I guess finding a mentor was a really important thing for me. Like I was talking to Jade earlier actually about my experience at Drum Shack. They've been my oldest clients for a very, very long time. They're an independent drum shop in Clapham Junction, and the owner Mark, he really inspired me because he's like a wheeler dealer, bit cheeky chappy kind of thing, and he showed me that being an entrepreneur or being a business owner didn't mean like, I don't know what I thought an entrepreneur was, but I just always imagined somebody like in a suit that was a bit oily.
I always had like a very different opinion of people who were calling themselves entrepreneurs. Oh, yeah. Because there is that.
I hate that. It's not a job.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it gets to a point where like people tell you you're an entrepreneur and you're like, nah, I'm not, I don't like that word. Yeah. But yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, he definitely inspired me a lot because I could see where the money was going, like to the staff, and I was just like, wow, okay, you have been propping up these people for like 20, 25 years. I want a business that can last that long. So my philosophy when it comes to running my business is longevity. I don't need overnight success, but if it means that we can survive to fight another day, then that's the victory. Yeah. That's what I mean. I can pay my staff, but obviously I get paid last. That's what I mean. I want to feed everyone else first so that the company grows. It's not really about the individual, and that's probably what I guess if you like helping people, like even like Jade and you are like really, really inspiring, like bringing like the entire community together. You just have like this need to connect people and head something up and lead. And there's people like that, and then there's people that just aren't. And I think if you are the type of person that really isn't very good with handling responsibility, and you know that about yourself, maybe you would find like employed life like a lot less stressful. That's what I mean. Yeah. Like being employed is really like in terms of financial stuff.
It can be very comfortable.
Exactly. Yeah.
So speaking of comfort, when you find yourself in this position where you're very comfortable, I think you need to ask yourself whether or not that comfortableness is just happy, or like you said before, if it's perhaps a part of procrastination. I think that like if you're in a comfortable place, it's really easy to procrastinate because like nothing's like going wrong. But if you like, there's a term that we were talking about, which was like cognitive dissonance, right? When you're feeling in a place, something's not quite right, and there's that feeling of dread. Maybe when you wake up in the morning to go to work, maybe you dread work. That's another thing. But also just like, you know, how do you feel when your partner walks into the room, for example? Like a lot of people procrastinate on leaving really bad relationships. Yeah. People procrastinate on staying in jobs that aren't for them, that they aren't putting 100% of themselves into. And that's bad for the business as it is for you, for your own mental health. So I think it's really important for people
especially in 2020 as well, to like really, because everyone's got a choice. You can stop doing what you're doing. Maybe, you know, things like poverty and stuff prevent you from doing that, but largely you can like retrain. You can go into different industries. You can stop everything that you're doing now, move country. You can do that. Like, you know, you've got the freedom to do it. There's people over the all around the world that maybe don't have that choice, and if you do have that choice, then why are you not exercising that? You know, because you're not helping anybody.
I think you're right when you were talking earlier about how you're not having any moments of reflection. Like you probably are just coming home being like, oh, that was awful, sitting in front of the TV, veg out. You're not engaging your brain thinking, well, actually, what might my career look like? Like, where could I be? What could I be doing? Like generally a good exercise is that a lot of people don't really think about like the next week ahead to the next month to the next year to the next 5 years to the next 10 years to the next 20 years. Like it's so hard to imagine yourself as like, let's say like a 70-year-old man or like a 70-year-old woman, but it's gonna happen, guys. It's gonna happen one day. And thinking like, are you doing anything towards like your pension? What are you going to do? Like, seriously, like with musicians, that was my main thing, because obviously they're freelancers, they've got to sort their lives out if they want to like get anything when they retire or even reach retirement in that industry. So it's like, you have to just sort of imagine, like just imagine where you might be, like when you're 60 or 70, and just be like, am I happy with that? Is that something is that realistic? Also, of course, we'd all love to, in an ideal scenario, be, you know, sipping cocktails on a beach somewhere with loads of money. But no, like doing what you do, doing what you love, is it sustainable for 40 years? Are you going to make something that's going to last 40 years? Yeah. You know, so like I said previously, that my philosophy is longevity. Like you want to survive until. To fight another day. Like you only need one hit as a game developer, really, to like get your name out there and actually get the ball rolling. You don't need every product to be a success. You just need to stay alive. I think a lot of devs actually are procrastinating and are scared to just get that first release out there. Like a lot of devs will, I don't know whether it's like shyness or they're scared of what will happen when they release it out there. Like, will it just get a ton of bad reviews and then my career's crashed? Like that's not a thing. Like you need to get your game out there. People need to know you're making games. And once you've got that first game out there, there's a thing within like the game dev community where, and it's not something that a lot of us talk about, I don't think, but like if someone comes to you and goes, oh, I've got great game ideas, you're like, oh yeah, cool. And that's kind of where that ends. But when you're like, oh yeah, I've had these like cool game ideas and I've released this and I released that, and then you go, oh shit, let me have a look, and then you kind of, you can finish stuff. Yeah, you make things. Yeah, and that's exactly it. Yeah, no, I think in general, like the advice that I give my students, especially that 16 to 19-year-old age group, is just like, make your first game. It's going to be bad. Make your second game. That's like genuinely like any games company, if you want to be an employee or anything like that, would hire you having released that. Say you're like 16 to 19, you've released a game before on Steam or Newgrounds even, they'll just be like, this kid's going somewhere, you know, we're going to take a chance on him. Because in reality, I'm not saying that game development is like a unskilled job or anything, but like it's something that can be taught, and generally if you're getting employed by a larger company, you're just given a very specific job, so anyone can really do it. Like even at a junior level, really all you need to prove is that you can complete stuff and that you like games, you know, they want to see the passion. Because to be honest, if you're in game development to make money, like in terms of like the millions of pounds, like that sort of thing, wrong kind of industry to be in, because we're notorious for like underpaying our staff. You know, if like for example, a programmer could probably earn more like at Deutsche Bank. Oh, absolutely. You know, do you see what I mean? Yeah, if you're doing it for money, then it's probably the wrong. You have to really think of the reason why you're doing it. I've actually met quite a lot of guys who were developing in that sector and then have been like, it's soul destroying. Yeah, sure, the money means that I was like super comfortable, whatever. But a lot of them are like, oh, I've been having this dream about this game and I just wanted to make it, so that's what I've been doing. And some of them are even like, oh, I'm still working there, but the second that I can figure this all out and the second there's somewhere for me to go, I'm going to go there.
Yeah, I mean, one of my housemates works for Deutsche Bank and she loves it. Like, she is absolutely loving being part of, like, you know, a really big company and just having that prestige, and also just being quite high up in the company. She's really proud of the responsibility that she has, and I'm like, that is amazing. But also, like, I don't know if, like, too many people would, you know, I don't think too many people would trade that if they found themselves in that situation where that you're getting so much money. It's just like, you really need to want to do games to, like, leave that. And if that's what it is, then do it. You know, there's nothing stopping you. And then again, you don't have to start up an indie games company to be a game developer either. It's just like, you can do like the smaller junior jobs if you don't have any experience. Yeah, maybe get a job first. I wouldn't start up a company unless you've actually worked, though. That's probably one thing that I'll say. So it's like, dip your toe in like both areas and see what's good for you.
In cases as well, you need to, like it's similar for us really, like you need to have worked in higher positions and understand what it is, what the commitment level is there, like what the responsibilities are there. Because if you're not ready for that, then that might stop you before you get started.
Yeah, or like you were saying earlier, it's just like, if you're an artist and you really, really want to start up a games company, but maybe you're a bit of an introvert, maybe you're not too strong on like the biz dev, social networking kind of side of things, then pull a buddy in that really wants to, really is into that or is good at that, and then you don't have to be alone either. And as you know, I actually think that the solo auteur kind of like romanticism around like indie dev I mean, they exist, but they still didn't make that game in a vacuum. That's what I'm saying. It's just like, there's always like someone in the periphery or a few other people in the periphery that make it happen, because it's impossible for one person to like have it all.
Certainly it's almost impossible for a solo dev to make a smash success hit on like entirely on their own, having done all of the artwork, all of the story, all of the everything, like programming.
I mean, they tend to be the lead engineers anyway, right? So they have the programming background. But then again, there's certain games that you can see that you can tell have been made by programmers, because like the focus is slightly different to like maybe having like a team work on it.
Like it's a really, really amazingly fun game to play. Looks all right. As opposed to like, if you'd have maybe hooked up with a couple of artists who like love creating like...
I mean, that was our first game, exactly. So we, like, because obviously Ben's a lot stronger on the programming side, and I'm like, okay at graphics. Like, I don't pretend to be like a character animator. I do like basic graphic design and stuff. But there was no way that I could produce, you know, AAA graphics at the time. So that was the style that we went with, pixel art. That was what we could do. And now, you know, we've gotten slightly better, I hope, and we're making something slightly different and a little bit better, in my opinion, visually. But like, unless you've got like that strong like engineer in your company, it's really hard like with game dev. So unless you are the engineer, in which case, well done, congratulations, you've saved a lot of money and a lot of stress. But
it would tend to be, I guess, like fairly well organized people, because you have to be when you're doing tidy like programming work. Whereas as a creative, it's a lot easier to be like, oh, maybe I'm going to throw this way, maybe I'm going to try this that way, and like you can be really malleable. Typical artist, I am a typical artist, I appreciate that. But yeah, so, and actually even for me, like starting to run my own studio, I had to really rein in my freeness and come into like, okay, I need to be a lot more organized.
Yeah, I guess that's the strength with my, I don't think I fell into project management. I don't think anybody wakes up, goes like, I'm going to be a project manager. Like, I think that's just like crazy. Like that's not something that you learn until you've actually managed projects before and be like, actually, I quite enjoy like, you know, organizing stuff. But not a lot of indie companies have a biz dev person or a project manager in there, because they don't think that it's a valuable, or maybe.
I think in some cases it just doesn't occur to people that that's going to be part of what you're doing. Honestly, like it didn't for me when I started out. I just thought, oh, I can gather 5 or 6 creative people together. We're all really cool, amazing creative people. It will just work. And then the more I networked and the more I spoke to other people who run their own studios and stuff, and they're like, oh yeah, so what you're doing on the business development side? And I'd be like, what do you mean by that? Like, like, you know, what are your plans for the careers of the people that you're employing? And that's when I started to be like, oh yeah, I need to be a really good boss if I'm going to do this.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's about being, you're the head of your company. Like, there's nobody higher than you. There's no one that you can go to ask these questions. And that's why I'm really grateful to my mentors. So I do actually have people that I can call up and be like, help, I don't know what I'm doing. But I've found that it's really good to have people around you that are like 10 years younger than you and like maybe 10 years plus older than you as well, because then they've got different perspectives. And I really, really appreciate that. That is something that like kind of makes me feel like I'm going in the right direction, because like, okay, someone that's a lot younger than me, 18, understands what I'm doing. Someone in their 40s maybe understands what I'm doing. Okay, this is something that we can navigate.
I think that's what helps you with this, like, what does your career look like stuff. Like, you can't, in some cases you might have a really good imagination. You could be like, oh, okay, I think I know what that looks like. But it's actually better if you can go and speak to someone who is doing it, has done it, and be like, what does that career look like? How do I get to that?
Yeah, making friends in the industry that are sort of just a little bit outside your age group. Just the knowledge that you can really like gain from doing that is just, you know, insane. And just talking to people in general, because people are just like fonts of knowledge about anything and everything really if you reach out. So like, I guess the point is whether you are self-employed or employed is just to talk. Just communicate and be better at doing it. And even if you're an introvert, like we're social creatures, right? Yeah. You can't go your entire life without saying a word to people. So it's just about getting comfortable being a social person, I guess. And I think that, you know, you'll be successful whatever you choose to do if that's something that you're nurturing, that skill, anyway.
That's a very good point. I think that's a very good point to wrap up on.
Probably.
As well. Yeah. So for everyone who's listening, why don't you tell people where they can find you online?
Okay, you can check out my game, The Tale of Doris and the Dragon. I'm sure you can Google it. There's episodes 1 and 2 out right now. Otherwise, you can go on arrogantpixel.com to find out more information. We're on Twitter, Instagram, all the bits.
All the usual places. It's great. And if you want to find out more about Game Dev London, you can just visit gamedev.london. We also have a Discord, so feel free to come join us there. And until next time, I've been Stuart, Ville. It's been Shin. Thanks very much.